Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, the creative effect ad tech platform. And this is a weekly podcast about the future of data-driven marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders. And this week is no different. I'm on a call with Nick Figueiredo. Sorry, Nick, your Portuguese name doesn't slip that easily off the tongue. Nick Figueiredo. And Nick is the head of performance marketing at MilliporeSigma's. But so Nick, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, can you give the audience?
Yeah, thanks so much, first of all, Tom, for having me here today. My name is Nick Figueiredo. I'm the head of performance marketing at MilliporeSigma. Currently, I've been in digital marketing for over 17 years. In my early days, I was cutting my teeth in SEO and SEM across B2B and B2C for a company named Vistaprint. That's in the old days of manual bidding and manual keyword mining in SEM, and then link building and chasing page rank in SEO. And now I'm working across all channels in SEM, display, video, social, programmatic, television, influencers, audio, you name it. I'm doing it. We're trying it. And what I've loved the most about digital marketing is being part of and helping build winning teams. I think for me, that's the stuff that makes me tick. I've been a lifelong athlete, and that's the stuff that keeps me working in digital marketing and building great teams for great brands.
So give me a bit on the lifelong athlete. What if you had to be in the Olympics next time around? What would be your choice?
So your football, Tom, my soccer, but we'll use the worldly term for it. So football. So I've been a lifelong footballer, played all through college. Up until about a year or so ago, I was playing very, very consistently in adult leagues around town. But injuries have kind of set me back a little bit recently.
And what position?
Normally striker, central midfield, outside midfield.
The money man. Wow.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, the number 10.
I'm not a huge football guy, so that's probably the extent of my knowledge. But
I
I
see.
try.
All right.
I like to try.
All right.
It's the job of those. But let's get back to digital marketing. So
Absolutely.
So you already shared a bit about your mindset and building, being part of successful teams. But what new belief or behaviour has really changed your work life in the last 5 years or so?
So I have a couple, right? So the first one is storytelling, and the second one is really leaning heavily on econometrics or statistics more broadly in my career. And so in the first one, right? So feedback is a gift, right? And one of the most critical pieces of feedback I received in my career was to become a better storyteller, right? To state my impact more clearly. And so without getting too far into it, I had this big presentation in front of leadership, the C-suite, where I really needed to state our impact for this awesome win that my team and I had. And unfortunately, it didn't go so well. I think I put all this time into creating content, PowerPoint slides, et cetera, but the story just didn't land, even though it was really clear that we drove a ton of value, right? Millions and millions of dollars in impact. And so coming out of that meeting, my manager had said, "Hey, Nick, you really got to work on your storytelling, right? That's how you sell yourself. You sell your impact, you sell your team." And so what I really started to do over the years was to work on becoming more concise, right? Making sure I'm understanding or excuse me, sharing with my audience why I'm taking their time, right? Why are you here with me today? Why am I stealing your time? This is what matters. Um, more concise, becoming more consistent, and then ultimately, I think a really critical part of this was um, turning up the frequency with which I referenced my stories or referenced anecdotes from my strategies. I think that was really critical in honing in on that for my audiences over time. The second part of that, as I said,
Sorry,
was
just before you move on to econometric and so on. So how do you map out a story, right? So you've run I assume is a fairly data centric campaign, right? You might have a dashboard, you might have a spreadsheet. So how do you turn that into a story? Do you have an arc, or do you have a start, middle, and end? How do you turn the cold hard date facts into a story?
it's so funny you said start, middle, end. My father always jokes he won't watch a show or a series with my mom, or sometimes even movies, because actually largely for shows. He says if it doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end, I'm not going to watch it, right? And I think he's talking about series because series go on for seasons and seasons. So truthfully, it's as simple as that, right? Why are you here today? Let me grab you immediately with that first slide. This is why I'm stealing your time. This is why what I'm talking about matters. Um, when it comes to the actual content of slides and selling the story, it's less about I need to cram all the information possible into this slide and more about I need to just deliver the headline, right? Deliver the punchline, get to the next topic. So for me, I've moved away from cramming tons of text and content into slides, and more about hero images, icons, one number, right? A very, very simple graph that makes it really clear what I'm trying to say. And then I use the backdrop for me as the storyteller to tell you about what's going on. So if you think about, right, I'm a new dad for the second time. We have two under two, actually. When I think about my kids and their development, right? I am reading to them, right? That's how they're learning, right? So if we think about our audience, how are they going to learn? They need to hear the story from me. I have to tell them what is going on, right? So that beginning, middle, end obviously is the simplest way of putting it, but selling the why, I think, and getting them hooked up front is how you get them into the rest of your story.
And is that how you speak to your kids? You're like, guys, I know I'm stealing your time here. I know it's bedtime.
Goodness.
But by why? So I'm going to impart some serious life lessons on you, right? Here she is, Peppa Pig. Yeah. Slide one.
It's funny, right? Man, we've been reading a lot of Dr. Seuss lately. Cat in the Hat, all these characters.
Yeah, massive, massive fun.
It's fun.
What the places we will go?
Yeah,
Or
all
the
the
places
places we
you will
would
go.
go.
Sorry, you will go. Sorry.
Green eggs and ham, all
Yeah,
of them, mate.
brilliant. I'm sure
But
that's a
listen,
strong marketing analogy in Dr.
it
Seuss somewhere.
it is. I think about it constantly when I'm reading to my kids. But I think the critical thing to remember is we all fall into this trap of like, I need to give them as much information as possible, right? Tell them everything. The reality of the situation is, if you put tons and tons of text onto a slide to help you as the presenter, you're getting it all wrong, right? People, your audience can read faster than you. So if you're going to sit there and read the words on your slide, you're doing everybody a disservice, right? Send that ahead of time. And then when you get into the meeting, you can just have a 15-minute meeting. Everyone did the pre-read and then you're done and dusted. But the problem with today's world is we're sending content heavy slides and trying to read them to our audience. That's not going to work.
What I always say to my team, and often not appreciated, is people can do one thing. They can either read or they can listen. You choose. Do you know what I mean? But they cannot do both.
Love that. I'm going to start using that actually. That's a much more succinct way of putting it. I love that.
But I think the bigger problem is there's psychological safety in volume. I have produced a deck of slides with a lot of data on it. Therefore, I've demonstrated work. Whereas the real work is removing this stuff, right? But I think anyone who's senior enough, who sees a succinct, clear message, understands that. But as a junior person, you think, oh, I need to make this really busy because it shows I have done work. But it shows you haven't done the real work, which is the pruning.
Volume is
When
value, right? That's the trap we've been falling into with
Yeah.
PowerPoint, I feel, and storytelling in general.
So econometrics, you got a double answer to this question, which is not the brief, but I'll give you a pass on that.
Thank you. Look, I geek out over marketing mix modeling, MMM, and and match market testing, in which we leverage a lot of causal analysis, other data science techniques, stats, right, probabilities. And I just love that world of probabilities and uncertainty because it gives me the freedom to work within a range, right? And so by leaning on that and moving away from this reliance on last click attribution, it's opened up a world of experimentation for me. So my team and I have been able to learn fast, to fail fast, to develop hypotheses from MMM, taking MMM and making it more predictive, which a lot of people don't realize, right? MMM is actually predictive if you learn to use it in that way. And so this is another, I think, key tool for me in my career development more recently.
And so, how are you coaching your teams to use MMM in a predictive way? How's that working for you?
So whenever we're getting readouts, right? Readout being like one, let's just say quarterly from the MMM. We're listening intently, we're observing, we're getting a lot of things read to us, right? What I'm instilling in my team is to try to think differently or ask yourself what else, right? So you're getting these midpoint IROAS readouts, you're getting these budget simulations, these models, right? That are saying a whole bunch of things that are looking backward. So I'm encouraging my team to take that and say, okay, what if we tweaked this or that? What if we challenged what we were seeing from a return on ad spend perspective on a marginal basis. And instead of continuing the status quo, what if we heavy up with this tactic where we started to find some marginal success? So for example, it could be a new channel, let's say connected to television. What if we heavy up in that? What if we go way bigger in that and really pressure test the assumptions coming out of the M? Right? Maybe the MMM said our return was 2. But if we heavy up, we might see that holds or maybe even increases if you couple that with better creative execution, better media planning and buying. So this idea of using the MMM as a baseline or a foundation, and then taking that and asking ourselves, what if we challenged it? What if we pressure tested what the MMM said? That's giving us the freedom within a framework to be more predictive.
Well, I think that's what we say a lot at Automated Creative is don't look at just what the data is telling you. Look at what it's hiding from you, right? You know, we just released a book recently called Using Data and Creativity in Marketing, and yeah, that was the I interviewed 40 people, like 40 very senior experienced marketers, performance folks, CMOs, tech people, agency people, and that was the consistent message is like, you know, data is it's an indication of what something happening, but it's not the whole story. It's not a comprehensive record of the truth. It's here's some things that happened, right? And so then you need to, and with your team, you're saying, well, look, that was what happened over there in the past, but now we need to look over here. So what is that data concealing from us? So it's really interesting to hear that thought echoed again. So we're going to move on now to your shiny new object, which is breaking down the myth of performance marketing, which is a wild statement for what is essentially a performance marketing podcast. So yeah, curious. What do you mean, Nick? Pitch it to me.
Yeah, listen, I'm not the first to come up with this, right? But the reality of the situation is all marketing or all advertising is meant to perform, right? So I don't feel pressured to have to assign every single click or an order back to the spend which drove it. And I think that's the myth, right? It's like the new frontier of last click attribution, right? And sometimes I joke like it's this campaign by the media giants, right? To to say that there's this very niche set of marketers or marketing and advertising that performs and all the other stuff doesn't perform. That to me just doesn't fly. That doesn't work. And if you think about the tools in front of us today from a measurement perspective, we talked about statistics and econometrics. We talked about MMM, which is a form of those. We talked about match market testing, geolift experiments. These types of tools are making it such that all your advertising can be measurable if you're doing it in the right way. And so this flywheel of find stuff that performs, right, from a direct response perspective, put media out there that is generating demand, right? So away from the old school funnel of um, upper, middle, lower funnel and more towards this demand gen, demand capture. All of these things are performance marketing, even though we can't say from a last click attribution or even a multi-touch touch attribution perspective, this thing came from here and this thing came from here. So from my perspective, all marketing is meant to perform, and that's the end of it.
So what would be a better description, like direct response? Like, so these ads were supposed to deliver a direct response or an instant response or a response within like an attribution window. Like, is that more accurate?
So think of it this way, right? If you're putting marketing out there that isn't meant to perform, why are you doing it, or what are you doing, right? It's just noise. And so my belief is that we don't need um, a campaign to show direct response revenue from a last touch perspective. Let's say just use a very simple form of attribution in a dashboard, right? We can use geo experiments, holdouts, growth studies, matched market testing, marketing mix modeling to take that whole campaign and say, yes, it didn't drive last click attributed revenue, but it did drive on a model basis or a probabilistic basis that and an estimated this amount of revenue. And so that modernized form of measurement is what is allowing us to show that all of our marketing or all of our advertising is performing, not just the stuff that shows up in a direct response dashboard.
So you're taking umbrage with the word performance when we should be using the suite of tools that you're talking about to be judging our entire campaign as a performance campaign. Did it perform or not? Right, as opposed to slicing and dicing it and saying, oh, this bit that required someone to click on the thing and go to the thing and buy the thing is what performed, quote unquote, right? So what would you prefer? What's a better terminology for it, or should we just forget about that? What would your advice to a CMO be to to avoid the trap of thinking it with a performance mindset?
I don't think there's a specific name for it other than to just say we are advertising to drive growth, right? So is it growth marketing? Is it growth advertising, right? You see a lot of that out there as well. I'm um, not to use the word tolerant, but I accept that term growth more than I accept the term or the phrase performance marketing, right?
But to your point, though, surely all marketing then is designed to be growth, right?
Yeah.
No, I was having a debate with one of our team at Automated Creative, and we talked about tone of voice, right? And the discussion was, well, should the tone of voice be confident? And I'm like, no, not in a B2B area, like, because that's a given, right? Like, you can't have an unconfident B2B tone of voice. Trustworthy, confident, reliable, robust, all these things, like, you have to be something that someone else is not. It was an interesting debate. And I think I kind of feel a bit like that about growth and performance, right? Everything's got to perform. Everything's got to drive
Of
growth.
course, of course. I don't think you're wrong, right? And again, I'm struggling to find a different word for it other than to just call it what it is, right? We are marketers, we are advertisers. What is the purpose of advertising or marketing, right? To drive growth from a revenue perspective in the short and long term, to drive brand, right? To grow the brand, to make the brand more um, reputable, to make it more salient, right? People remember it, people recall it when it's time to purchase.
So I wonder if it's maybe the performance growth isn't the issue and more around the KPIs. So I was fortunate enough to go on a book tour to talk about the book. I was in Amsterdam and I was speaking to a large online retailer, and they were saying that they'd read the book and sort of been inspired by it, which was amazing. They were saying that the problem is that you have all these different teams with different KPIs. So you've got the ecom team, who are all about basket size and conversion rate. Then you've got the media team, which is all about impressions, reach, click through rates, bounce rates, and then you had the brand team, which is all about like long term brand health and metrics, right? Whereas so the ecom team just want to cram as much into the basket as possible. The brand team are like, no, don't cheapen the brand, like, don't do anything, don't stick around all on anything, like make it make it a beautiful brand building thing. So and really what that organization was trying to do is to make everyone responsible for everyone else's KPIs. So yes, yeah, you've got to increase basket size, but that basket size will go up if the brand team's long-term health metrics go up, and vice versa, right? If you've got great products, but and that was an aha moment for me. Really, is that you kind of need what Rosie Jacobs says is like a basket of data. You all have the same basket of data. So the performance team can't do well if the brand team aren't doing well, and so on and so forth. It's a really interesting way of looking at it.
They all need each other, right? Like you can't, it's there at the end of the day, I think there still needs to be some, I was talking earlier about team and this mobilization of the collective toward a shared outcome. Like I still believe that in the uppermost way, there's some shared outcome that we all want as a team, right? But you're right, there is some underlying um, that's a pond of data that we all pull from and we all understand, right? And different teams need different subsets of that data in order to succeed and drive toward that shared outcome. So the brand team might need awareness or salience. The digital marketing team might need revenue, right? But all of those things eventually ladder up to some shared outcome, which could be earnings per share or something like that. That's
So
not my
Nick, I'm
favorite
gonna
metric, but
I'm gonna put you in a horrible position here and ask for
boy.
a football / soccer analysis here, right? So performance would be the striker, centre forward, and you can't just have 11 strikers on the pitch, right?
Yep.
You might get one or
Facts.
two away. Do you know what I mean? So how does it like? I'm just trying to work out what is the analogy there between. It's not all about. It is all about sticking the ball in the back of the net, but the keeper also can't let any in. But that's a very different metric to the. But if the front one, two, three lose the ball, that puts stress on the keeper, doesn't it?
Of course.
I don't know, Nick, have I gone too far here? I feel I have.
No, I mean, listen, like in certain circumstances, the keeper may have been the one to start the process of what eventually became a goal, right? If you think about some of the best teams in the world today, sometimes the keepers are, outstanding with their feet, or they make a great save. That leads to a distribution to their outside fullback, who passes into
Yeah.
this guy, who passes the next guy, and leads to a goal, right? So 6, 7, 10 guys could have touched the ball before the ball went in,
Nick,
right?
I can see a LinkedIn post for you, right, which has got all of the 11 laid out on the pitch, and
I
what
think
is
it's
that? No,
been
the
done. It's already been done.
goalkeepers.
Yeah.
All right, share it with me, man. I would love to see that.
It's not
Anyway,
my analogy, but it is there.
um, unfortunately, we're at the end of the podcast now, Nick. So, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you to discuss anything we have today, where's a good place to do that? And crucially, what makes a message that you will actually respond to?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn under Nick Figueiredo. Keep it simple, concise, right? If you think about what matters to me, it's why you need me or why you're trying to steal my attention. So don't give me the average uplift or from all your case studies, right? I'm not the average. Not many of us are. So just keep it short and sweet. Hit me with the why.
Beautiful, Nick. Thanks so much for your time.
Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me today.
Let me just stop recording there.